it was prairie. It's not prairie any longer. It's not solely due to Buckthorn, but Buckthorn is a big part of the non-existent prairie. I have contacted the county and have asked how I can be a Buckthorn eradicating one-man team, as I called it, and I've been contacted. I've obtained the training materials to be a licensed pesticide applicator, so that I can legally volunteer with the county to apply pesticide when they have those projects. And I saw the committee, your committee, in the Franklin newsletter, and this went along with my curiosity. So
okay.
I'm here to learn, find out how possibly to be of assistance.
Well, can you let us know your name and address for the record?
Yeah, it's Donald Hannes, 7950 South 66th Street.
Awesome. Okay, so I know what our agenda is, I think. So really quick, I always kind of give you a heads up of talk about what we're doing today, so our new business. So the subcommittee was developed so we could sit and talk and discuss various ways of having Buckthorn, kind of studying Buckthorn. So not that we don't know about it, but we want to know, what do the citizens of Franklin know about it? What are some things that we could eradicate Buckthorn, and kind of come back then to the Environmental Commission with these ideas, so then we could discuss them and then send them back to the Common Council. So we had something we put Buckthorn on the noxious weed list, or we asked for it to be added. It went to the committee, so the Common Council committee. Not necessarily. There's some things they had with it. So Buckthorn is highly expensive to contain, so they had some issues with cost. As well as they didn't want it to become a complaint-based system. So they didn't want it to, because I'm mad at neighbor John, I'm calling on him because he has Buckthorn type thing. So now what we're doing is we're trying to today is going through a survey that we're going to be putting out to the community, asking them kind of about Buckthorn, and then having them have an understanding, do you know what Buckthorn is? Do you know ways of eradicating it, and et cetera like that. So that's what we're going to be doing today, because the kind of the thought behind is, if we get some citizen comment on it and we're able to provide some data, then maybe we can move forward with various plans to have it added to the noxious weed list, or to somehow have it added into our UDO or an ordinance of some sort on it. Very long process. And then Jim, we've been talking about the county too, and the county was supposed to have something come out by the end of the year, and we haven't seen that yet. So, and we know that those are some of the questions. So Buckthorn is a plant, so it can spread. So if the county's not going to do anything about it on their lands, do we have a right to do something? Which I don't think we do.
So the county did actually approve an invasive species management program. I have to check and see what pieces of it can be disseminated to the commission. Okay. It's an internal policy document for the county, but it's also a public record. So I need a little bit of clarification on that, but that should be not in your upcoming agenda, but in the one after that. Okay. For your information, they have adopted a county-wide policy for the management of all invasive species, and they let us know that this was happening last year, but it wasn't clear what the invasive species, and they let us know that this was happening last year, but it wasn't clear what the timeline for development and implementation of that is. It appears to be fairly comprehensive, but I've only reviewed it's.
Will we be able to see it soon?
Yeah.
Will we be able to see it soon?
Yeah, hopefully in February. So I got it right before the break, and your upcoming agenda was mostly set at that point. So yeah. So for the focus of today with the survey, I shared with Jamie the list of proposed questions that you had generated.
Original one.
the original list. So I think the task for today is kind of to decide what information you want to put forward to the full commission, and how to word that. So, because I think you're well on your way to like a pretty strong set of questions. That's kind of where it is.
Perfect.
And then to your comment earlier about revising them to get them in the packet, I would like to do that as quickly as possible, and I'd like to get the packet out tomorrow.
Okay.
So we'll have to.
I have everything. So once I'll write on here, because I know we can't have it right away. I'll go home and do it, and then send it to you right away tonight.
Okay, yeah. If I have it in my inbox in the morning, that would be amazing.
So I would have to do it tonight, 'cause tomorrow I won't get it done until like noon if I don't do it tonight.
Okay, I would love to get your packet in the morning now.
Yes, I know you would. So once we figure out what we want to add or do here, send it back over.
Okay, yeah, and our intern compiled the feedback that you guys received, which I think is a Word document, so.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, she's great. I printed it, but it was a Word document. Okay, so should we go back and kind of forth and add some stuff? Someone here, I like this. Some of the feedback is great. Instead of doing highly disagree, just agree, neutral, disagree. I think are adequate, so I agree with those options. I do like the other one too. Whoever added at the bottom where they said 23 questions, the magic number for a survey is 20. They said 23 questions, the magic number for a survey is 20. So, and then I also like having the busting buckthorn, having that kind of as a starter thing. So, sorry. So it's the
Right.
where was it? So here, would start survey with a review of Buckthorn as appeared in the October newsletter.
Was that in the news? So it was in the city's newsletter. Since this is a working group, oh man, we'll all use this together. Buckthorn. Was it a link or?
I don't know who it was. Just said, would start survey with review of Buckthorn as appeared in the October newsletter, busting Buckthorn, and ask if they read it, and if so, can you identify it? So I kind of like just kind of the ease of getting people into the idea of what Buckthorn is. Or we could even Buckthorn is. Or we could even ask, did you read the article busting Buckthorn in the October newsletter?
Here's a link to it.
And if not, here's a link. How was North Carolina weather?
Too nice. Way too nice. Record high temperatures.
Yeah. Until it suddenly wasn't.
It was way too fast.
Where's the actual newsletter? Is it the summer newsletter?
No.
Oh, the commission's website. There's no quick way to get to it. Or you could, I think
We could link it in
Yep.
too. I think that was it.
So this is here. Yeah, this is quite,
Basic.
yeah.
Alright, well, either way. So newsletter or article on website. Okay. To start. So start with. And then is there a question? I'm going to number these because I didn't number them. why do I only have 10?
Remember to turn it over, folks.
Survey.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not have a chance to read it until I was home last night. But, I share many of their concerns. Part of it has to do with the length. I mean, it's way too long.
Mm-hmm.
And it's far more intrusive and opinion-based than I think it needs to be for what we want to do, which is why I rephrased my questions in the form of yes or no questions. Do you think it should be addressed citywide? It's still an opinion in many cases, but doing this scale of 1 to 5 or even, in between, isn't going to, in between, isn't going to isn't going to give us much more knowledge that way, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you one example. I think it's the second page. How great of a risk do you believe Buckthorn poses to your home or other structures on your property? If I were to give you my honest answer to that, I would say none. It will not probably, harm your home or structures any more than any other. It's almost an irrelevant question for, it's mostly going to take over open spaces and tree lines and shrub lines, and it suggests an issue that probably doesn't,
Yeah, I think the original survey, maybe it was for a creeping vine.
It was a creeping vine.
So it might be a more appropriate question for people that are managing woodland areas or have gardens or farms, not structures, but other aspects of their property that it could impact the value. Other aspects of their property that it could impact the value of.
And you have to remember that the survey was meant just to give us a starting. So everything was just changed to Buckthorn.
I know. That's okay.
I'm going to make a comment quickly about how these results will be tabulated. I'm not sure who's going to do that yet, but there's a likelihood that I'll be involved in it. And in the past, whenever you do this, the net outcome of a yes, no, or a ranked agree, disagree, that kind of thing, ultimately arrives at a score. So the difference between an agree, disagree, neutral versus a yes, no, you still end up with a score. So it's kind of a question of how you're trying to get the information out of there. I think it would be appropriate to include a no opinion neutral.
Okay. Well, that's fine.
People this week, and I was like, oh, we're doing this Buckthorn thing, and they're like, I have no idea about it. So for them to say are you, no. So then the next couple questions are no.
Yeah.
No. So if they know nothing about Buckthorn, it's almost one of those things then. All of this information, might now be have you heard of Buckthorn? There's going to be these different, I think, categories that we're going to find out and see, and I'm not sure, are we going to use SurveyMonkey for it? So it's super...
That's the tool we currently have. It would require me figuring out if we could use something different. If we want to use a different tool.
So if we want to use, so I don't know how we feel about Google Forms. We could have if someone says no, we can then branch it to be pretty much done. What are your demographics? Would you be interested in learning more about it? What are your demographics? Would you be interested in learning more about it? And then if they say yes, then they get these questions where it's do you think it's a pose or a threat? And then they're able to give a response. Because in that way we're having, if you say no to everything and you don't know anything about it, you're automatically, like, oh wow, we had 83% of our people said no to this question. But in reality, we had all these people say no from the start.
Yeah, I think there's kind of there's a question in my mind. First of all, we're theoretically not supposed to use Google.
I didn't think so, because I don't think it's like, I have a feeling because it's a Google to make sure. But then it's one of those things that we'll have to, like, if you have a neutral, like, they can't disagree or agree with something, they're neutral because they don't know.
Yeah.
And most people would pick neutral because they don't know if they didn't know.
I think you could, so you can, I'm pretty sure you can insert links. So I think the first question should identify it, and do you know? You could pack a lot of information into the question, because the survey, I think the intention was also for it to be an educational tool.
Yeah.
I also don't think people are going to take it if they're not at least a little bit familiar. That's I'm theorizing. Bet a little bit of money that they won't bother if they don't know what it's about. So,
I think the assumption should be that if you're going to put out a survey about Buckthorn, people who are interested in or concerned about Buckthorn are much more inclined to complete the survey
precisely.
than the 90% of the residents
Yep.
who probably have no clue what we're talking about.
But that should,
And the longer we make it then, the less likely we are going to get more of a response from the people who are kind of in the middle there. From the people who are kind of in the middle there.
completion rates start to drop off with links. So Jim has this question, and Commissioner Cieslak has the question, are you familiar with Buckthorn? And there's also the I know how to identify. That should be the first question.
That's fine.
So, do you guys mind if I use your first name? I try to be formal and okay, but
How to identify.
and then you could do the link in that.
Yep, I got the link to the article.
Hey, I got to ask a question.
Sure.
That's the survey that you're discussing, where would that be presented to the citizen?
Letter.
Okay,
So it'll be ready to go. It'll have a link so you can type it in to your, or we'll probably also do a QR code right away.
okay.
So like if you have your cell phone, you can QR code it. It'll pop right up for you.
All right.
And then that's
Okay.
where they would take it.
Okay.
But it's not going to be physically printed. But it's not going to be physically printed in the newsletter.
No. The goal is not to do that because we know that that's going to cost money, and we want to keep that to a minimum. We
okay.
will, I believe we said we will have printed copies available at the library
And you can have them at this
or
our
at the
desk
front.
as well.
Available at the library
And you can have them at this
or
our
at the
desk as
front,
well,
yeah,
so.
or at the planning commission.
Yeah.
So they can do it that way if they would like. So we will have it will be, but it won't be in the newsletter because the thicker the newsletter, the more it costs. So my next question is, are we actually concerned? Should we start with demographic? No, demographics should be at the end. And it really should be like, are you do we want to know if they're just a property owner? I think would be the next question. Because I put on, I was like, okay, well, we don't necessarily need to know what their education level is. We don't necessarily need to know what their income level is. Their age. We don't need to know what their, unless they, like, maybe they answer this question, like, do you think you
And
can
many
eliminate
people
it?
may not be honest about those
Well,
questions.
Well, the other thing too
Even
is like
though
broad
blind
survey. Yeah. But then the only way I think the age one would help is like, do you believe you can eliminate buckthorn from your property?
Oh, well,
Because then if it becomes like an age, like they're unable to because of their age or their ability level, that it's different than because they don't have the ability level, that it's different than because they don't have like the money, which would be, I think we would be able to see from like the cost type programs.
the question 5, do you believe you can eliminate buckthorn from your property, kind of gets to that.
Yeah, that's what I was like. I was looking at that one too. Should we then do I have the knowledge to kill buckthorn effectively and safely, which would be like 2 or 1, 2, the second one? Would that be another one? Because then here it becomes a knowledge thing. Like, do you have the knowledge to train individuals or give them ideas of how to remove it?
None of this, the 3 pages I received don't have numbers on any.
Yeah, we renumbered them.
So it's kind of hard.
Yes, and I think, well, it didn't have numbers to begin with.
No, I didn't do numbers to start. 'Cause I didn't want to. So it would be the second one on the page with all the words on it. So if you go all the way to the top, it would, if you go, how great of a risk do you think
Oh,
buckthorn?
yeah.
So then the next one down is I have the knowledge.
Okay.
Knowledge and resources.
Knowledge. That's a good one. Knowledge and. Because then you're combining pretty much the next 2 down. So the time one and the money one.
I would shorten the question to, I have the knowledge to kill buckthorn safely and effectively.
Yeah.
A buckthorn tree may not be present when
Yeah.
buckthorn is.
I have the knowledge and resources to
Yeah.
kill buckthorn.
When
Yeah.
buckthorn is.
I have the knowledge and resources to
Yeah.
kill buckthorn on my property. Okay. So cancel the second one. I have the knowledge. Cancel the second one. I have the knowledge and resources. To kill buckthorn safely and effectively on my property. Okay. So that would complete your number 5, right? From that other,
Yeah.
from Jim's. Okay. What would be number 6? The balance of nature is delicate. The idea here is to get a general response of their ethics. That was what why the question was posed from the original article, like the research we used, because they had like social ethics or environmental topics. So that's how they broke them down. I'm gonna cross it out. Topics. So that's how they broke them down. I'm gonna cross it out because I don't really need to necessarily know what their feelings are about the environment.
You're asking the same question a different way.
Yep.
Yep.
With how great of a risk do you believe buckthorn poses
Yep.
to Wisconsin's native plants?
Yep.
To Wisconsin's native plants. I modified that a little bit to say poses to native plants and gardens in your community.
Okay.
Like, people will just look at this as, well, this is a natural area, who cares?
Yeah. Okay.
But if it's in my gardens, I don't want it there.
Okay.
And that's where it came up in my property.
So education, I'm gonna get rid of. I don't think it's necessary. Right after the garden one here, the risk to the residents of our community, we want to get rid of that because it doesn't actually pose a risk
No.
to the residents.
Yeah, I would eliminate
That.
all but the second last question.
I'm just going through them. Confident that your personal actions. Get that one as well. How confident are you that your personal actions can help reduce the spread of buckthorn in the community?
Yeah,
Like, how useful would that information be?
I don't know.
How useful would that information be?
I don't know. I think we would just find out that people either are highly involved or not involved at all. 18, I don't think is necessarily important.
Which one?
I'm sorry, it would be 19 for you, I believe. Most government officials don't.
Which one?
I'm sorry, it would be 19 for you, I believe. Most government officials don't care.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want this to become political. So the confident and like the extent you believe that your actions to reduce are the same question. So 20, the buckthorn tree or sapling. I think that will be important because we've had the issue with the Franklin Trail where they cut down all buckthorn, but people didn't understand that it was an invasive.
Are you talking about question 20?
I think it would be 20 or you kill a buckthorn tree or sapling.
To me, it's an irrelevant question. I mean, it does not, it's talking about your opinion of other people again, rather than do you want to address. And I think my neighbors are going to feel like you're kind of opening this up to a can of worms that, you know, from a survey.
Yet
marketing
I kind
point
of
of
see it the
view.
other way, because if this is a noxious weed and the owner wants to deal with it, and the city's already dealt with it and people complained. So that's why I think it would be important to see, like, even if you're dealing with it, and we can change it, to what extent do you think others in the community will notice the removal of buckthorn? Whether it's good or bad, it's giving us a perspective of what
Steve,
people are going to feel.
The next question views it almost identically, you know, as to whether or not your community is going to address this. That includes your neighbors. I like that question. But, you know, to me, it's just kind of repetitive. But, you know, to me, it's just kind of repetitive and nitpicking.
There was a discussion at our last month's meeting about the question of, do you think the city should impose stricter regulations?
Yeah.
Requiring removal. So kind of regulations.
Yeah.
Requiring removal. So it kind of takes it away from, like, is this neighbors policing
Yeah.
neighbors, and puts the onus back on
The city.
the regulatory agency,
Mhm.
which is really what the discussion is.
Yeah.
So,
Do we want to add that one in? So then we can get rid of those and at least put, so then it's not about whether or not your neighbors or somebody's
No.
going to notice and see it.
You know, my question number 7 was the one I struggled with the most. Because I want it to be clear, the question to be clear that we are going to bill property owners if the city feels obligated to plants.
I think that the ordinance, so 4 and 7 should be together. Because if we make it an ordinance, it automatically would be like you have to remove it, or
Well, I
there's.
don't think you can have an ordinance that says it's a noxious weed, but city's not gonna do anything about it.
But our noxious weeds automatically have the
They have the
pest
removal
control on it.
requirement.
And right now, like, they're gonna charge. So if I did put my sump pump hose at 10 feet, they were gonna come and install a 10-foot hose, and I would have gotten charged for that. So like any time, you know what I mean? Like, so I think that charged for that. So like any time, you know what I mean? Like, so I think that if it's an ordinance. And there is no ordinance where it's a cost ordinance, but most people, when they see an ordinance, and if you're not obeying the ordinance, you're going to get either a ticket or you're going to get,
Yeah.
hey, you got to fix it, or you're going to get fined type response. So I think we should combine those two
Okay.
and then get rid of, I would say, if we maybe keep the one about, the positive one at the very end, like how confident are you that together residents can solve?
Yeah,
Or I like the residents. Do we want to do it as residents, or do we want it's the city and the residents working together? Maybe modify the last two. So I think we'll take.
consolidate
again,
them.
when you say the last two,
Sorry, last two on this short. This one. I know. I'm sorry.
yeah.
Numbering the pages would have been
These
much
last,
more
yeah.
easier to do that.
Comment.
Go ahead.
I mean, just how confident residents can solve, I don't know that any community, all residents buying into it can solve it. I think the best that can be done, residents buying into it can solve it. I think the best that can be done is control, reduce, solve to me has the tendency of, it's gone, it's gone. Your choice. I'm just commenting. Your choice. I'm just commenting.
Community can
Control the spread of Buckthorn.
together. I'll read it back to you guys, but it's pretty much. So, how confident are you that the community can work together to control the spread of Buckthorn? Question mark. I think that should be the last question on our survey.
The three choices.
I think we'll do no confident.
Yeah, neutral, confident, no confident.
Yeah, we'll go down to 3. It'll be easier than,
You make it too hard, people are gonna say, screw this.
yeah. I'm just so used to doing surveys that I get like 4 surveys.
There's a radical difference in the quality of surveys that you might receive.
Right, I get a ton of them. I get district ones, I get city. All right, so let's go. We have 1. Let's get rid of that because I rewrote it. We kept this one. So we're back to the property questions, kind of at the top of the sheet we were just on. So property size, do you own the property, and how many years have you lived on the property? Do we want to just break it down to, do you own your property? Or is it important that we own your property or not? I think...
That's why I modified it to say, do you own or manage property in the city of Franklin?
So yes or no, we'll keep it that one. I like
Because,
that one.
whether if you're renting, you have probably no control over what's going on in your apartment complex but you might be a property manager for a significant piece of property here.
Or have a community garden, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got rid of those questions. So do you own or manage, and then in Franklin, and it's gonna be yes or no. That's gonna be pretty obvious. I don't think we need to make a agree, disagree option. We don't care about their education.
Okay.
Talked about income. We don't care about that. Do we care if they're female or male?
No.
No.
Do we want to know how old they are?
No.
I don't know. Do we want to know how many years they've lived on the property?
Might be. It requires multiple answers, but yeah.
Well, and I tried to group them by like up to 20
Yeah.
and then 25 or more, because now we're going to call you a committed resident to Franklin after 25 years. Versus like me, I'm still committed because I'm not leaving my house, but I haven't been here more than that, so I'm not sure. That's almost how old I am, I should say.
The economic growth question, are you leaving that in? Growth question, are you leaving that in?
This is a hard one.
Do you wish to leave that in?
I don't know if I want to know what the results are. Like, somebody added, I'm wondering if we should state policies related to economic growth must be given a higher priority over environmental concerns. I think that statement's actually better. Versus economic growth should be given priority. I like how policies related to economic growth. That might be a good one to ask. This question is swayed in one favor. Like I already know what the answer would be for those that know about Buckthorn. Versus like if I give it to people that don't know anything about Buckthorn, they're probably going to be more for the economic growth. I would say for this survey is, do people know what it is? Do they know how to take care of it or eradicate it or control it? Would they be okay with an ordinance?
Yeah.
You know, those are the questions we're asking for this specific survey to get if there's going to be any sort of backing. So I would say let's table that one. I would like to know it as like a personal.
Well, on a broader survey, I would.
Yeah, I think, but that might be a survey like the mayor would give out, or you know, like to understand what the goals of the city mayor would give out, or you know, like to understand what the goals of the city are going to be. Yes, sir.
As a citizen,
Mm-hmm.
had I received a survey titling looking at Buckthorn and coming to this question about, I don't see that it's tied to Buckthorn
Yeah.
whatsoever.
Uh-huh.
Economic growth, a task, a goal for the city itself. If there's a large piece of property that the city would obtain, and there's Buckthorn, I would believe they're going to come in with a bulldozer and wipe it clean. And the Buckthorn planting is going to be replaced by a building and a business.
You'll be proud of our DPW or our new park where they went in and eradicated.
I guess
I agree with you though in the economic growth question, and I'm going to be honest. This is a survey that was used, and there's research behind it and reasons why the questions were used. So all I did was I typed it up, I just literally just changed the name of the invasive they were talking about and put the name of Buckthorn in. So that
can I suggest, because part of what this is getting at is to do invasive species removal is going to add cost to development across the board.
yeah.
A different way of asking that question to residents, because this is targeting residents, is that different types of properties should be treated differently when it comes to requiring invasive species removal. So is the expectation that a development, which depending on the types of natural resources that are there, we might not allow them to level the property. Franklin has very strong standards about protecting trees and other natural resources. So it would be worth knowing, do those standards, do you want to continue to have that level of protection based on the type of development? So commercial, residential.
So do you think we should ask, or do you think we should ask the question about an ordinance? Do we want to add, would this ordinance pertain to all property types in Franklin? And then the next question would be, if this was an ordinance, would you be in favor of charging citizens that do not remove Buckthorn after, or putting it on their tax bill or whatever? I think because then it's layering it. Because we might say, yes, I think it's an ordinance. Yes, I think it should be on all properties. And have it worded, you said it very much more eloquently than I did, but by the way. And then have it like, do we want to charge people? Because I think what we might see is yes. Yes, no. And that's, I think we're providing data because the council sent it back to us, and we're trying to provide data back to them, be like, no, our residents say it's okay for us to charge people, or no, they don't. They're okay with an ordinance, but they're not okay with the charge. But I think that's really, no, they don't. They're okay with an ordinance, but they're not okay with the charge. But I think that's really the deep down, and whether or not
That's
we
why I
can
kept two questions separate.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, the fact that we have an ordinance is probably something a lot of people aren't aware of, but it doesn't require removal at this point, does it?
No.
No, okay. It just says, hey, this is a noxious weed, we don't believe there should be any.
Right.
Please see what you can do, basically. Taking every property.
No, and currently the weed control is mostly complaint-based, so.
No, that's what I mean. And we don't want to do that.
I'm trying to think how to
Or so
word
we
this.
were told.
So, a question like,
That might be a better.
Yeah.
Would
just differentiating between the different types of property.
yeah. I'm gonna write the ordinance. I'm gonna write the ordinance question down.
I'm trying to picture a piece of property where the city should not care. And I'm having trouble other than the county lands. Other than the county lands.
I mean, just in terms of broad classifications, I don't have a land use map in here, but
Oh, well, close.
yeah,
It would be farmland, industrial. So if like for zone, there's pre-planned developments, there's manufacturing or slash industrial. So like there's like the kind of like the mixed use, and then I think there's commercial, and then agro.
so there's the zoning, which is the
Yeah.
existing uses that are allowed, and then there's what's referred to as land. So
Or the
it's
naturescape.
Yep. So things like commercial, residential, industrial, agricultural are kind of the broad categories, but I don't remember them off the top of my head. So
But where would we want to allow buckthorn to
right.
flourish? Now, if you don't take it out, we're gonna come and get it. And
Right.
we're gonna send you a bill, one way or another,
Mm-hmm.
if push comes to shove. Unless, that we're now gonna say, you're an industrial property, in which case we don't care.
Yep.
But that makes no sense at all to most people.
And specifically on public lands. So
Oh, yeah.
county-owned lands,
And
they
the
are the
county-
largest property owner in the
I-
region. So
Yeah. Is it the County Nature Conservancy that owns a few blocks out to the southwest? Milwaukee Nature. Trying to remember the name of it.
Milwaukee County owns like 30% of the land in Franklin.
I
So
know.
um,
It's a big,
a lot of that is floodplain.
big,
A lot of that is floodplain. What happens to me?
like what is referred to as the Franklin Prairie.
The
Franklin Prairie,
the Franklin Savannah.
savanna, yeah, which is hardly a savanna anymore. But,
It is very much impacted. So you can flip on the zoning, and again, this is what we'd like. So this is the Franklin Savannah. Areas in green are parkland. Blue is institutional, and so this is the zoning map. The purple is planned development districts. Environmental layers on this map. So for example, we know that areas of the city are floodplain, but that crosses the boundaries of like land use types, so it doesn't
Right.
currently make a difference. So the question, I guess that is a question that has come up repeatedly that I do think might merit inclusion in the survey is, do you think that certain types of properties, the standard should differ for public property, business, public property, businesses, or residential property. Just those broad categories. You could include agricultural land, just, well, a lot of this area is agricultural, and then actually a lot of this cultural, and then actually a lot of this floodplain is farmed.
Well, I mean, I live on 74th and between Drexel and Rawson. I was surrounded by agricultural land when I moved in here. I mean, it's all going to be gone in another 15 years, I'll bet.
I actually have a question for you. Does not have any development in our southwest corner. It's still all like pretty much ag. And I was like wondering, is that because we haven't updated, or like was there no communication between sewer like I was wondering about that. Not necessarily need it for this meeting, but
We can talk about that later. The
Okay.
population growth of the city.
that's why
I think it's a reasonable expectation that,
it might not
yeah.
be developed
And
yet.
it's also, a lot of it is like probably going to be conservancy land in some way. So like you can't see it on this map. Can I show you the other map?
That's what I'm saying, between county parkland and, what I'm saying, between county parkland and Milwaukee County Conservancy, they own a substantial block of land in the southwest section of the city, not to mention all the county park system properties and we're pretty much relying on the county to take care of all of that. And if they don't,
So all the green,
almost everything we do is
they own a lot.
going to be like
So
sticking fingers.
just in general,
Oh, it's just all
all
by
of
the
the
water.
Root River floodplain is owned by the county.
Got it.
All of it.
Yeah.
This map shows areas of conservation.
Mm-hmm.
They're conservation areas. So some of them are parkland.
So like when someone passes away, they make it a conservancy, right? Like that type of thing? Or
No, so more frequently what happens when a development proposal occurs, we require that it's required to be placed under a conservation easement, which means that the development rights to that property are ceded to the city.
Got
The owner retains use of the property,
Yeah.
but like in terms of, they can view it is literally what the, the easement says, but are not allowed to develop it. So that's a very common feature in development proposals in
Yeah.
Franklin. And you can kind of see the network of,
All the easements.
yeah, so we actually don't have a map of easements, but
All the easements.
yeah, so we actually don't have a map of easements, but you
Oh.
can see kind of, these are environmental corridors, so they're connected
Yeah.
natural resource areas. Sewer Pack knows that there is a significant amount of natural resources in this portion of the city,
Yeah.
and a likelihood natural resources in this portion of the city,
Yeah.
and a likelihood that the floodplain has expanded.
Got it.
So they probably
That's why they didn't actually make it any type of development.
yeah. Plus, there's also been, I think, we, the city, have not updated our comprehensive master plan
It ends in 20.
in 2020 statutorily, but we haven't completed it for a variety of reasons.
So that, is that kind of why the UDO is happening, so that can happen?
No, they're related.
Okay.
The decision was made to do the UDO first because it's
Zoning and all that.
Yep. They should go in tandem and kind of be refreshed one after the other. But the comp plan determines future land use. The future land use for this entire area in our comprehensive plan is residential. And that's not reflected by Sewer Pack's plan for, they probably had a better understanding of the natural resources when they did their plan.
Got it.
So that's my thought.
Okay.
Leave that up for a moment.
Yep.
I mean, this whole area right here,
That's
where
the
the
dump.
landfill is,
Yep.
I mean, nothing's going to happen there
Yeah.
of significance.
Yep.
I mean, nothing's going to happen there
Yeah.
of significance.
Not in the next
And if you're
25
going to
years.
live, just east of 112 or north of Oakwood, you're going to want to be as far away as you can. We're developing here. We're running sewer and water down these streets right now. I've seen them every time I go by there.
Well, some of that's for Waukesha water though too, right?
No.
Oh, it's all our water?
Yeah, I doubt it.
So,
I love this stuff. I'm sorry. This is interesting to me, so sorry if you have somewhere to be.
the Ryan Interceptor is a stalled to accommodate the future growth that
Got it.
our comp plan hopes may occur here. So that's part of what you guys have seen in the last 15 years. There has been water, probably down Loomis, for Ryan.
That's where Straussville is gonna be.
Yeah, Ryan, sorry, this is Ryan Meadows.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay.
So water came for that, and to accommodate the development occurring here. So, for example, this woodland area, and even though it's not one of these natural resource areas, it's probably not large enough an area.
Yeah.
But local ordinances protect it, so it's under an easement. So you can't see that on this map, but that's the case. So, and then there's other areas of natural resources here. So then the question becomes, tie into the UDO update that's occurring is, do you want to treat different types of properties differently in terms of the expectations around landscaping and invasive species removal?
Because that would make sense.
I mean, I think to some extent it would, like a single-family home, an individual property owner developing that lot, I think we would not want to hold them to a higher standard than a commercial developer.
No.
However, when you look at the amount of public land that's affected, I mean, and they're really, frankly, some of the worst areas, and the county has developed a policy.
Yeah.
So when you come back to that question of like, what's the expectation? Is it they implement their own policies? Is it, you know what I mean? So just to close the loop, I think that information would be useful as opposed to.
So this is what I have started, and I'm just kind of at. I want to know if we want to group like agriculture, public, and commercial as, or like manufacturing as one versus like residential. Or do we want to make it multiple? Should exclude. ... Like I'm
Just
not,
check the following, maybe.
Okay, so exclude and then check the following.
Any of the following types of property. And that is kind of in line with how the current natural resources work. So the classifications there are residential and non-residential zoning. I'm not going to remember this unless I look at it.
So we're going to go agriculture, public land, residential, which wouldn't make sense. And then do we want to just go overall commercial use? As in, like, it could be commercial, like a shopping mall or center versus like a manufacturing, or do you want me to separate those two?
Yeah, just say commercial.
Mall or center versus like a manufacturing, or do you want me to separate those two?
Yeah, just say commercial. It's,
Commercial.
there is.
When does this have to be submitted?
January 16th.
When does this have to be submitted?
January 16th.
14th.
14th. After our meeting on the 12th.
No.
Well, it'll be all typed up, and then it'll be in the packet. Like, I'll have it typed up tonight. Most of it's takeout and ads.
Yeah, so the ads. Yeah, so okay. Here's the classifications for the natural resource protection standards. It's agricultural, residential, and non-residential.
All right, so I put public and commercial. I separate that out.
Yep.
Okay. Just so we have a better understanding. Is that going to change?
I don't know yet.
Because it's kind of like, because it's weird, because like non-residential, so it's public lands and commercial lands, and they're two separate things.
Yep.
So that really like, but I understand why they condensed it, but anyways, whatever. So these are the 3 questions I added for ordinance. Would you favor a citywide ordinance require removal? would that be fine? Like, okay. Do you think buckthorn removal ordinance should exclude any of the following? Agriculture, any of the following lands?
Types of property.
Following types of property. So I have agriculture, publics, so for that. And the last one is, should a buckthorn removal ordinance pass, would you favor billing property owners for removal costs if city notices are ignored?
That's fine.
I kind of reworded a couple things to notice them, like, hey, by the way, you have to remit. So I wanted to make sure that it was like an official city city notice. Okay. So we got the ordinance questions done. Got that question. We're gonna get rid of the most people in my community believe I should take action. It does sound negative.
It does.
Okay. Got. How long have you lived at the property we're keeping? Got rid of that one. Okay, so should we go through what we have? And then I'll type it up and then we'll have it at our next meeting. I think I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10 questions.
Much better.
So I'll number them on the next one. So we have numbers, so like when we're talking about them in in commission, like it's easier to go through. But I'll read them to you right now, and I'm not how we want them to go. But number 1, are you familiar with buckthorn? I know how to identify buckthorn. So like yes or no, that's kind of an easy one. And then I'll link to the article. So 2, I have the knowledge and resources to kill buckthorn on my property. Would you favor a Would you favor a citywide ordinance requiring the removal of buckthorn? Do you think, so the 4 I just read or 3 I read. Next question would be, I already did that one. How long have you lived on the property? Oh, we have to add the are you a property? How long have you lived on the property? Oh, we have to add the are you a property owner? So we have 11, sorry. Or didn't we kind of ask that one, like
No,
manage? No, okay, are you a property owner?
The owner managed question was discussed as it should be included, but you haven't got it off yet.
All
I think I
right.
understand where you're going. I mean, if you want, I suggest we just go ahead, type up the new and improved version for the meeting, and if it's in our,
Okay, perfect.
that way you don't have to,
Well,
which number is which.
yeah, the numbers are getting me on here.
And once you do it, you'll probably say, oh yeah, this question should come first,
Yeah.
or whatever.
So I have it all done. I will have this to you, like I said tonight. It'll be
Excellent.
either my project before this thing class or after. So, any other questions or comments before?
Comment.
Sure.
Just as as a citizen of Franklin and Milwaukee County, as I use the Root River walking trail and bike trail, as I go north from Drexel typically on my bicycle. I haven't gone south from Drexel in really quite some time. But I know what happened behind my house, what used to be prairie, and it's no longer prairie. And there's some noble treason. And there's some noble treason there, but it was either buckthorn or hawthorn. I know going south over the first little bridge behind the homes that are off of the subdivision that's on South 68th Street and going east. That's on South 68th Street and going east. That used to be farmed field, and I'm familiar, I was aware of that, and walking through there the other day, I see that what was farmland replaced by prairie is being replaced by Lord knows what. I can only presume a good deal of it buckthorn. As I've gone north and I've seen where the city has done wide-scale cutting down of, they refer to it as habitat improvement. It was, And I don't know that people really understand what buckthorn is or know how to identify it. And, you know, anything that's green and is growing, it's a shame to take it down. You know, but they don't understand. So I'm wondering if there's a simple anecdotal way, if it would benefit the committee, you know, that part of the, you know, and just to introduce buckthorn to people, you know. Do you like the prairie there on the north side of Drexel and 64th Street? You know, if we're not attentive to the buckthorn, it'll be gone. And it really, I don't know what everybody's opinion is. Mine is, I like the prairie effect with noble trees if they ever come to populate it. I don't know. Stick comments on people's windows, you know, every so often in the parking lots, and some people's windows, you know, every so often in the parking lots, and see if there's a way and a place for them to respond to a city comment gathering place, you know.
Are there any signs? Like, do they have like any postings? Like the county normally. Like, do they have like any postings? Like the county normally will sometimes like have a posting, or like if you're on the Oak Leaf, they'll have some like rules and regulation signs or boards up. Have you ever seen any of those?
Only specific to pets, dogs on leashes, and pick up your dog litter, you know.
Because it might be one of those things where we could just do some education quite a bit. So like if you're out in Colorado a lot, like at the head of a trailhead or at the, you know, the entrance of the park, you have like your information. That would be something that would be interesting to have. Like they'll talk about their invasives, or like, hey, make sure you wipe your shoes off before you leave, or you know, anything like that before you leave. Or
The Rook River, you know, pathway. I've got to believe most of them, the majority of them, are Franklin residents.
yeah, Franklin Green.
You know, and taking advantage of that part of it. You know, I know perhaps in the city-owned parks, Grove Schmidt and somebody's next to Carrie's. That's I would presume that's
Grove Schmidt's fortunate, they have a friends group that's
see, yeah,
pretty
exactly.
active with
Exactly.
buckthorn removal. I know being an active member of Audubon, we walk the entire Oakland from one end to all the way down to Ryan, at least twice a year on bird census trips, and I truly feel sorry for the people who live along that trail, because there's so much buckthorn south of Drexel. It's just, it's truly sad.
I hear you, brother.
I mean, you could take a chainsaw and you'd have trouble. Where would you put it all? There's that much of it.
I think I can speak freely because I haven't gone onto city. I haven't gone onto city property at the back of my house, but I saw how buckthorn was coming towards my property. And I'm controlling it. So don't turn me in.
No, you're.
Turn me in.
No, you're. No comment.
It is widespread, unfortunately, and that's
The young lady who I spoke with at the county, her name was Hallie Mincer,
okay.
you know, for what that's worth. And she met with me. She was very generous. On the Oak Leaf Trail, they're north from Drexel, about half mile or so. Yeah, and again, just if there's a way to combine county and city resources.
I don't know if you're familiar with Brian Russert, but he's the individual who's in charge.
Not familiar.
Probably, you know, Sally probably works for him. He's been down here with us and looked at it. He understands the concern. It's a question of where's the money
Yeah.
going to come from.
Yeah.
The county can't afford to take care of the parks the way they want to now. The county can't afford to take care of the parks the way they want to now.
Oh yeah.
And I've undertaken that in my own small way, letting my state representative and senator know to get out of our business.
Yeah.
And let the county charge a sales tax
Mhm.
specific to the parks.
That'd actually be right.
specific to the parks.
That'd actually be really smart.
Pardon me?
I said that would be really smart.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it's, I know people don't want to increase their taxes or pay more, but everybody uses a park at some point.
Everybody was willing to pay for Miller Park,
That's true. Right?
Yeah.
Well, and it's,
but they did.
but like, if you live in a county, like, even if you don't necessarily, if you're not an outdoorsy person, you still, I'm pretty sure, have gone to like one of the parks to watch fireworks. Like, that is what it would be. You know, that's what we're talking about. Like, you've gone to something to see, or
Education.
yeah,
The society benefits overall from the existence of both.
yeah,
There's also the value of it's sometimes referred to as environmental services in terms of calculating the value of green space,
yeah.
because trees are providing air quality for people and that kind of thing. So I think that is undervalued as well.
I think eventually, I think if this process evolves far enough, we're going to have a group similar to Friends, for lack of a better word, Friends of Franklin Parks, that will voluntarily take on different pieces of
Layouts and
property, because
There has been a discussion about that sort of there was a Friends of Franklin Parks
Yeah.
group.
I know, I've emailed them twice, never gotten a
They are defunct.
I know, I've emailed them twice, never gotten a
They are defunct,
Yeah.
but the Parks Commission is interested in engaging residents more with
Well, yeah.
the parks. It's just a question of how to make that happen. So,
Well, Friends of Grove Schmidt is fortunate they've owned, it's the only park that's substantial except for Whitmore in the community, so. That's why I'm interested to find out about this new park you're talking about.
yep, in your February, the new one.
Proposal for,
it's that green right there.
Yeah, that's something we should talk about. We'll get the property lines.
that is where it is.
This is
I'll
where
be
it is.
darned.
What is this?
1, 2, 3, 4 parcels.
So it's a
Excellent.
new park.
Yep.
See, I go right past Loomis there, and it's Loomis there, and it's like, there's 2 parcels for sale on Loomis between dentist office and I don't know what, where that R8 number is,
This?
just south of there, where the post office is. It would be a perfect location for a small park, but it's too small. Perfect location for a small park, but it's too small. But if you've got the south side or the west side kind of ID, that is outstanding.
So B4.
Right off of Lover's Lane.
Yeah, it's
Super.
right where it is.
Yeah. I will be happy to work on a proposal for invasive control.
Yeah, I should connect you. I'll talk to Glenn about it, and we will get that going.
I don't want to keep you, Jamie, if you.
The Department of Public
Fine.
Works has done their to just clean up the understory, and it was a little bit unsophisticated. But they were basically like, we need to get the lay of the land. So they did fly the site with a drone beforehand. And the city forester also went out there and identified like high quality tree species.
Mm-hmm.
And the wetlands obviously performed, and we stayed out of the wetlands. So eventually this will be a conservancy park. But if you look, it's actually almost entirely environmental corridor. So,
Which makes sense.
yep,
Excellent,
yep,
Makes sense.
yep,
excellent.
yep. And our understanding is that there are trails on private property back here. So,
That whole area between where US Bank is and behind the Aurora Healthcare facility where it says Aurora Healthcare facility where it says RD on Loomis. I mean, it looks like it's either going to be undevelopable
this is all
or it's going to
wetland.
require a lot of fancy footwork to convert it to something.
Yeah. so I guess it's split up. I guess I never looked at the parcel.
Yeah.
This is a wetland, like it's
You
very
can tell.
obvious.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's very difficult to
Mhm.
fill them as it should be.
Yeah.
It's also, well, we know that there's like a boardwalk kind of, so,
Excellent.
but the city now owns this, so.
Excellent. Excellent.
It almost be wondering if we could not, like, almost like lease that land to continue with that boardwalk, like that whole area,
Can you
like from the property owner.
lift up this map so that what is this area right here? This is all
So,
native prairie. I've driven past it. I mean, it's probably partial.
I believe, maybe off by the same information. You're talking about kind of behind the church?
Yeah, R3.
Yep.
I mean, I drive this road repeatedly all times of the year. I've driven up here, I was hoping there would be a spot.
Oh,
So
that's
Sewage
sewage
district,
district.
yeah.
It's not doing. That's why I mean it's a prairie.
it's a
That's
prairie.
Uh,
And MMSD entered into a either an agreement or they have turned actual ownership over. I'm not clear on the details, but that prairie is going to be part of the Milwaukee Area Land Conservancy.
what?
Is it?
The Milwaukee Area Land Conservancy. So
Yeah.
I don't know who's retaining ownership of it, but Conservancy. So
Yeah.
I don't know who's retaining ownership of it, but because it is a prairie, there was at one point a park proposal for this property, which actually Caleb's playground was going to go there, but that didn't happen. So
You have no idea how happy that makes me.
yeah,
Admired that property for years, ever since I
yeah.
admired that property for years, ever since I first saw it.
So really, what the developments that they've been proposing in the southwest corridor area are really the only, almost the only developments that can go over there, because of all of that. Like
There's so
that's
many
that's
wetlands
Newman.
Yeah, and this
That's the Newman development.
this
that.
is Newman. This is the new Ryan Meadows.
Yeah.
The NRSE on your next agenda is for this parcel, which is a residential development.
Is that the bear one? Another additional 2.
It hasn't been approved, but a request to rezone some of these parcels from agricultural to residential to allow for residential development, but it keeps getting stuck at Plan Commission, so.
What are they stuck on?
So in order to change, so I do not remember what the future land use of this property is, but in order to rezone it, they must also change the future land use.
Oh,
And that the Plan Commission has to approve that, or it doesn't go anywhere. The Plan Commission has to approve that, or it doesn't go anywhere.
got it.
And they have declined to make a decision.
Really?
So,
Okay.
yeah, well, it's been a tie.
Oh,
Like they didn't have the right vote count, so. In that case, because Plan Commission regulates land use, Common Council actually can't supersede them. So
got it.
that may or may not come back, I'm not sure.
Hmm.
So, it's currently farmed. This is the Franklin Savannah, so.
Like a wetland area.
Yeah, so this is crisscrossed with wetlands, and they would probably need an NRSE in order to do roads and
Anything over
infrastructure,
there.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've walked in there off of Oakwood, and it's very hard to park. And you really have to bushwhack your own trail almost.
Yep. It is on my list to get out there this summer. I'm a little sad that I haven't done that. I've biked most of the Root River Trail, and obviously I've been in most of the City of Franklin parks, but this I have not managed to do. I hear it's rather buggy.
Oh, yeah.
This I have not managed to do. I hear it's rather buggy.
Oh, yeah.
So, I don't like that.
Oh, interesting. I've learned a lot today.
Yeah.
Well, because I looked at the 2050 sewer pack and I was like, why is this?
So radically different.
Yeah, like why is it bare? Like there's nothing. And this.
So radically different.
Yeah, like why is it bare? Like there's nothing. And then I was like,
Well,
Yeah.
got it.
Thank you for coming. Dan.
Yeah, thank you.
It was interesting. I just get it from, anyway,
I mean, we're all trying to do what we can.
we're all citizens.
We're all learning from each other. Yeah, no kidding.
Do you want any more than my name and address?
That's not necessary. Our agendas, I think you have already found them. So the commission's next meeting is the 12th
Yeah.
for the full commission.
And
So this
next
is
week
a
will be
subcommittee
yours,
of the
yeah.
Environmental Commission. So
I'm going to,
would you like to motion to adjourn, Commissioner?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it. Journal at 4:50. I guess I was